Okay, people. So I am just back from the media screening of the 355. Right? It is this new espionage film. Right. And I think a lot of the talk around it would be like, oh, you know what I mean? It's a female born, right? It's from these heavyweights. When you look at the people involved in the film, it's crazy, right? It's crazy. So there was a lot of talk. You've also got, you know, five women, five real talented women involved. And it's just like, that's a lot of people, man. Are they going to muddy the waters here? How is this going to coalesce? Right? That's the thinking. And, yo, people out, you know what I mean? There's no point even trying to, dance around the fact. I enjoyed the shit out of this, right? This was a good film. Oh my days, it really was. So let's get into those brass tacks, shall we? All right. So it is directed by Simon Kinberg. You know what I mean? Old Kinberg, he is behind a lot of stuff. He wrote the X-Men films, right? He also, you know, he did work on the, that friggin' Fantastic Four film. He did. I mean, he's worked on some stinkies, right? Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Oh, Triple X State of the Union. I'm like, but again, he's worked on some good shit. He's worked on some very good films, right? The Martian, Elysium, which I enjoyed Elysium, you know? I think Elysium got a bit of a bad rap, but I enjoyed Elysium. Jumper was solid. Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And, he did The Martian, right? He produced The Martian, which definitely a good one, right? Definitely a good one. So that caliber of creative, you know what I mean? That caliber of creative, you're like, okay, all right, you got my attention. And the interesting thing, because he worked on those X-Men films. Now, I read this, it might not be true, but during the making of Dark Phoenix, little left said on that one. You know what I mean? That wasn't a good one. But during the making of that, there's Jessica Chastain. She was in that, right? And she said to him, yo, why don't we do a female spy film? You know what I mean? Why don't we do that along the likes of James Bond, Mission Impossible? Why not? And it's like, so they mold around the idea, and they developed it. So Kinberg, Kinberg. Why I even doubt myself, man? Shit. But he worked on a story with Beck Smith and Theresa Rebeck, right? With Rebeck and Kinberg, polishing up the screenplay. It's produced by Chastain, Kelly Carmichael, and Kinberg. Cinematography is Tim Maurice Jones. It's edited by John Gilbert and Lee Smith. Music is Tom Hulkenberg. And man, the cast. Jeez. This is a ridiculous cast. Now, it did take me a while. Well, I was gonna say, why am I even lying? There's people I was watching the film and thinking, I recognize that. Who the fuck is that person? I recognize them, right? So Jessica Chastain. I couldn't place her in my mind. I was like, who the fuck is that? I know who she is. Well, she plays Mason Brown, right? Or is it Brownie? When there's E on the end of Brown. Is it Brown or is it Brownie? I mean, you don't really care. But yeah, she plays that, aka Mace. It's a terrible nickname, right? Mason, like Mace. Just doesn't work. But she's a CIA officer, right? Her partner in the CIA's Nick Fowler, played by Sebastian Stan. Now I recognize Stan. I was like, oh, Winter Soldier. Okay. So yeah, I at least I got that. And her boss was Larry Marks, played by John Douglas Thompson. We then have got yeah, because we saw her next. So it's Mary Schmidt. So she works for the BND. That's the German secret agency. And she's played by Diane Kruger. I was lost with that one. I was lost. I was like, I know you, but I don't know you. Right. So yeah, she worked for them. Who next? Okay, so yeah, let's go. So they are after Edgar Ramirez's character, Louise Roja, who's a DNI agent, right? And that's the Colombian Secret Service. There's a lot of secret services here, people. So yeah, they're after him, right? And Penelope Cruz, who I didn't think it was Penelope Cruz. I thought it was Pia. Is it Pia Guerrera? I don't know, but it's Penelope Cruz. I didn't really need to tell you that, but fuck it. You know what I mean? Now, she also works for the DNI. She's a psychologist, though. She's not an agent in the field. And her character is Graciela. Right? We then meet Khadijah, right? A former MI6 agent, a computer specialist, and she is played by Lupita Nyong'o. Right? So we got, I think that's all our main. I mean, there is also Fan Bingbing, who it plays Lin Mi Sheng, and she's an MSS agent. Yes, you can probably surmise. Yeah, she's the Chinese Secret Service, right? So yeah, a lot of people. So her dad is, I think that's her dad. I'm not quite. I forget. But we've also got Jason Wong, who plays Stevens. Emilio Insalala, who plays a hacker. We've got Hilton Patel plays Ahmad Iman. Leo Starr plays Grady. And Oleg Chinkanova plays Peter Kasanov. Right. So yeah, that's our major players in the piece. Right, so the gist of the film, people, it is a little like this. When a top secret weapon falls into mercenary hands, wild card CIA agent Mason Brown will need to join forces with rival badass German agent Maria, former MI6 ally and cutting-edge computer specialist Khadijah, and skilled Colombian psychologist Graciela, right, on a lethal breakneck mission to retrieve it, while also staying one step ahead of a mysterious woman, Lin Mi Sheng, not really true, who is tracking their every move. Not really true. As the action rockets around the globe, from the cafes of Paris to the markets of Morocco to the opulent auction houses of Shanghai, The quartet of women will forge a tenuous loyalty that could protect the world or get them killed. Bum, bum, bum. Yeah. That's it, baby. That's it. And boy, yeah, it's a ride. Now, I will get it out the gate, right? There are subtitles in the film, which it kind of makes sense. But it is frustrating as a motherfucker, especially, right? And I don't know why. The front row was off limits. I don't even know why. It baffled me, right? Got into the screen, front row empty. I'm like, golden. Boom, sat my ass down. Then I had the staff come up to me and be like, "Oh, you can't sit in the front row." I'm like, "Say what?" They're like, "Oh yeah, you can only sit at the seats with popcorn." I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's the one nice thing about most. I think the majority of that's a lie. Some you got biscuits, right? There's coffee and biscuits. They usually give you a little something. But yeah, some of these bigger screenings, there's alcohol, right? So and yeah, popcorn or other little treats, which is nice. But when you're keto, it's all off limits, man. anyway, why am I? God damn it! Why am I? You know what I mean? Whoo, tangents, baby, tangents, right? But yeah, to be honest, even in the front row, I ain't seen the subtitles. One thing I did notice, they did do that thing, though. Did do that thing. No border around the subtitles. So you got white letters on light backgrounds a lot of the time, which is amateur, man. You'd think by now people would work out it's not the way to do it, but they do it nevertheless. So when it opens up, there's a film opens up with subtitles. I was just like, oh man, please don't let this be a large portion of the film. Now, it is all the way through, but yeah, the majority isn't, which was good. And you could kind of get the tone of what was happening, even though, I couldn't read what the fuck was happening. So it opens anyway. Yeah, I need to get into this shit. Opens up, right? With this deal going down, right? You know what I mean? It's like cartels and all of this. They're meeting in Colombia, right? And so it's like a big drug deal. It's like a big drug deal. But then you realize it's not drugs. It's not drugs. It's this encryption key that they're trying to sell. And obviously, people, that does not go to plan, right? Because you got the situation in the room, and then you've got the DNI outside lurking, getting ready to bust it down, right? Now, when you see like what happens in the room, you're just like, okay, all right. Because it is a bit like, are people that dumb? Right? Are people really that dumb? But yeah, you're like, fine. All right, fine. But it does make you wonder, right? How are they telling this story? Right? Is it just gonna be people falling into the commonly seen mistakes? Right? That's the thinking. That is the thinking. So we see this, and then it's retrieval, right? It's retrieval. So, the drive is with a DNI agent and he's trying to offload. Mosley doesn't really know what he's got. So you've got agencies looking for it. So we see that's where we meet Mason, right? She's fighting, doing a little martial arts, because that's the thing now. Every film, they want to throw in a little martial arts, right? Want to throw that into the film. But I will say, what made it interesting for me with this scene is the style of fighting, because it wasn't just, how, and I've mentioned this, right? When it gets ridiculous, but you've got a small woman and she's beating up all these dudes and all of this. So in the fight, she's using her speed and things like that. And when she got hit, yeah, she's getting doubled over. Buckled over, that's not a thing. She's getting doubled over. And so it's like, okay, I believe in this fight that we're seeing. You know what I mean? And that was very reassuring, right? It made me think, oh, looks like they might handle this shit a little different, right? Looks like they might handle this shit a little different. So we see all of this. They get sent on a mission, but then they do that thing. They do that thing with loners, and then they decide to, open up, right? And it's just like, oh, I don't have to be alone all the time. And as soon as you see that shit, you know someone's getting murked, right? Obviously, someone is getting murked because you don't give a vulnerable moment, someone letting their guard down early on in a film without consequences. It's the obvious thing that we always see, which again kind of rolled my eyes. I'm a bit like, oh no. Are we just doing these cheap little gimmicks? But yeah, this mission. So they go to retrieve the drive. They go to retrieve it in Paris. That all goes wrong. And we get two separate chases. She's after the woman who happens to be our German operative, Maria. Right? Marie. I feel Marie. And then Nick, he chases old Chris, the dude. He chases our dude, right? Our other DNI offers Louise. And these chases were good, man. They were fun. Like the shit went and made sense. Like you see those scenes in films and someone pulls a gun, but they don't use it because it's like, there's too many people around. And you're like, but why didn't you? Nah. So we see the beginning of that, but then they change it up and they do things. You'd be like, oh, snap. That makes sense. Okay. So we got these real fun chase sequences, both very different, but they both worked. Right? So we have all of this. Then shit goes real south. So it's like, oh, but this leads us to meet our other agents, right? And we have these little logical things, right? That make sense. And you're like, okay, all right, this is fun. Have some more chase sequences and all of that. And yeah, you're like, yo, okay. All right, this is interesting. Now, I think when they introduce us to Graciela, Penelope Cruz's character, you do wonder about that one, right? Because you think, oh, how are they playing this? Then it gets dropped that she's a psychologist. And you're like, oh? Right? But you're waiting for a double cross, you're waiting for something which doesn't happen. And they play the character well, right? Because she's not a field agent. So yeah, she gets scared, she's worried, she doesn't want to have to really do it, but she's kind of, they bully her into it. I think that's fair. They bully her into it, but it makes sense, right? Because it's logical. All the arguments are rather logical here. And then we get all the agents meet and, the big team up. And again, it is a bit of a logical situation, because, yeah, they are all technically fighting for the greater good. So you're like, okay, it makes sense. But we then, like when we see those kind of things in films, everyone's now suddenly buddies. It's not really the case, right? There's still kind of little animosity and stuff like that. But as time goes on and they're saving each other and all of this jazz, people are a bit more like, okay, okay. And you're like, yeah, this, all right, yeah, this makes sense, man. This makes sense. But it all goes kind of crazy. All goes kind of crazy. And you're like, fuck. Like they do throw in a lot of what? Plot twists and everything like that. Now, a lot of the times you watch a film and especially when there's a lot, multiple, you can deal with one. But when there's several, you're a bit like, come on, man. Like you can't paint yourself into a corner and then all of a sudden this happens and it's just like, ah. But the way it makes sense with this is because you're like, okay, yeah, that's a logical thing because of course that would happen, right? And even when they play it with some little red herrings and all of this, then when the reveals come, you're like, oh shit, yes. Yes, because that conversation and that leads to, yes, that makes sense. Boom, boom, boom. You know what I mean? And so you are getting this story that is very plausible, right? All the fights. Again, as I mentioned before with the martial arts, right? We have these fights go down, and it isn't a case of the women just, seamlessly kicking butt. No, they're having to rely to use the gun and stuff like that. And in the hand to hand, they're getting smacked about, right? They're thrown up against walls, they're getting choked, and it's like having to like do a thing to survive. And you're like, oh, that makes sense. And a bit like the Marvel shit on Netflix, right? You see the damage, you know what I mean? And the damage stays, right? It's not a case of, oh, she got smacked up, bruised. Oh, now the bruises are gone. No, no, no. Everything, the collateral damage, right? The physical damage, it stays throughout the film, which I liked. There is a fluidity, a really nice flow to the fights, and not to the fact where, it looks like a dance. No, no, no. It's they're not smooth fights, but it's the way they're cut together, right? There's this fight between Mason and Marie in this room near the docks, and the camera's going at us like a slant, and it's moving and like pa 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 pa. You know what I mean? Just like that, people. But the kinetic energy of it really pulls you in. You're really just like, yo, you know what I mean? With scaling buildings, people nearly falling, like explosions. You are sucked into it. You really are. Man, there's moments in my life like, what? You know what I mean? The things happening, I'm just like, oh, no, 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 no. And yeah, I was pulled into the film, people. I very much enjoyed it. Very much enjoyed it. And yeah, we the reveals were crazy. The reveals were crazy, especially the things happen, and I was like, oh, I did not see that shit. Didn't see that shit. Now, one big thing does happen, right? Which it is a bit of a cliche, but they do make it work. They make it work, and yeah, they tie it up nicely. They tie it up nicely. Now, it does end in a way where this clearly could be a franchise, right? But it's not cheesy. It's not cheesy. I think there was a logical progression in the film that I think was just so well done. It was so intelligent, right? It made a lot of these action films look very sloppy in the way they develop their stories. Ain't gonna lie, right? And I did wonder about the film, as mentioned, right? Because we've seen this kind of thing be tried before. I mean, Charlie's Angels is a very I think it's a good example of them trying it and it just failing. right? The original two Charlie's Angel films, with Drew Barrymore and who the fuck? There was I Shorty from Kill Bill and that lawyer TV series. Lucy Liu, and the blondie one, right? The other blonde one. I don't know. I forget. But anyway, Charlie's Angels. So those two films, which I hated those films. They were bad. And then they tried to reboot, right? And I hear that's a stinky. It's just come on Netflix. I ain't watched it yet. I'm imagining one night when I'm not sleeping, 2 in the morning, I'll throw it on just to be like, couldn't it put me to sleep? But these films failed. Tomb Raider, the original Tomb Raiders, that didn't work. The Lewis one was a bit better, I will say. But yeah, it just wasn't very logical in the way they scripted it and the story flowed. This makes sense, man. It makes sense. Even when they throw in some little kind of political shit, you know, some comments like, yeah, thanks for mansplaining. They didn't say mansplaining, but it's a thing. But you're like, okay, fine. I'm down. I'm cool. Because they make the reference, which then explains the fucking title of the film, right? I didn't know this, but the 355 was the name of an agent during the the uprising when those just ungrateful bloody Yankees kicked the poor old British out of the country. It's just terrorism. But yes, supposedly, she was part of that, and they used a culturing method to decipher shit. And 355, I think, in that means lady, right? The lady or lady, one or two. And so yeah, then it's just like, oh shit, the film makes sense. Film makes sense. I get the title now, and that kind of gets broken down, right? And I don't. That's not really a spoiler because I imagine, you know, our American friends, they all probably knew that shit from the giddy. I'm assuming that was taught at a school and all of that one. But yeah, she's unknown, right? They don't know her name. And so yeah, it makes sense within the context of this film. But I would be down for more, for sure. For sure. You know, I like the way they did it. I like the way, even with, I think it was like there was a scene where one woman wouldn't have been able to go into a place, right? Because it just wouldn't have made any sense. And so they were like, oh no, this has happened like this. And you're like, boom, they're thinking, man. You know, it's my whole argument with a black James Bond, right? Why it doesn't make any sense, but have more different double O's, right? This film kind of shows that. It shows the necessity for different agents and doing the thing and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, the 355 people, friggin' solid as a motherfucker. I enjoyed the hell out of it. If you like your action films, Now, like, yeah, in the promo for this, I did hear people reference the Bourne films, right? I will say it's not like the Bourne films, but it's not it doesn't pale in comparison. You know what I mean? It's really does it very well. I enjoyed this more than some of the Bond films. You know what I mean? Makes a lot more sense than a lot of the Bond films. You know what I mean? In the way it all went down. So yeah, if you like, James Bond, if you like Jason Bourne, if you like a good espionage flick, then people, the 355 is going to tick all your boxes. Oh, you are going to be giddy like a motherfucker, right? You're going to enjoy this because they make it make sense. So, yeah, people, it is out in the cinema this Friday. So people go enjoy the 355.